Dinner was supposed to be quiet. I had made lasagna, real homemade stuff, layered with more patience than love. She came into the kitchen late, phone in one hand, a cheap bottle of wine in the other, like we were just roommates sharing a fridge. Her name is Madison. She wore that green sweater I always hated, the one with sleeves too long that swallowed her hands. She sat across from me, twirling her fork through her pasta, talking about some new coworker I didn't even pretend to listen to. I studied the steam rising off her plate instead. Something about the way she spoke, too fast, too bright, made the air feel heavy. She didn't notice when her phone buzzed against the wood of the table. She didn't notice the screen flash alive for a second. I wasn't trying to snoop. I didn't have to. The message floated there, fully exposed, like a gun dropped on a table mid-conversation. Can't wait to be inside you again. It burned through my vision. My stomach flipped so hard I thought I might throw up right there onto the lasagna. I looked at her, still laughing at her own story, oblivious. Something cold and ugly unfurled inside me. Not rage. Not sadness. Something worse, a sick, electric calm. I picked up her phone, feeling the grease of the screen on my thumb. No anger in my hands, no trembling. Just a weird kind of silence in my blood. I leaned back in my chair, held the screen up like I was showing her a funny meme. Madison's eyes darted to the phone. Everything in her body froze, like a rabbit mid-leap spotting the shadow of a hawk. She coughed, then choked, genuinely choked, and for one surreal second I thought she might pass out right in front of me. She grabbed her glass of wine, spilling it, splashing cheap red across her white plate, across the table, dripping onto the floor like little meteors. She slammed the glass down and opened her mouth, gasping like a fish dragged onto a dock. "That's not, you don't understand," she stammered. Her voice cracked hard on the word understand, like even her own throat refused to help her. I didn't move. I just kept holding the phone up between us like it was some kind of holy relic. "Explain it to me," I said, my voice so steady it barely sounded human. She laughed. Actually laughed. A dry, brittle sound that made the hair on my arms rise. "It's a joke. You know how guys are. It's just stupid flirting. It's nothing. You're blowing it out of proportion. A joke. Some other man wanting to be inside my wife was just a joke." Something inside my chest shifted, cracked slightly, but it didn't break yet. She reached out fast, snatching the phone from my hand, clutching it to her chest like it was a shield. Her eyes, wide and glassy, danced everywhere, over the table, over the wall, anywhere but at me. I pushed my chair back slowly. It scraped against the floor, a long, ugly sound that made her flinch. "Read it out loud, Madison," I said, my voice low. She shook her head. Small, frantic jerks like a marionette. "No, I'm not doing this with you. You always think the worst. You make things up. You twist everything. A new lie for every breath she took. There was no apology, no guilt, only this twisted, desperate need to rewrite reality before my eyes, to make me doubt what I saw, what I read, what I knew. Watching her was like watching a drowning person who didn't even realize they were underwater. For a second, I thought about flipping the table, about walking out and never coming back. But instead, I leaned in, hands on the edge of the table, and looked her dead in the face. "How many jokes like that have you told him?" I asked. Her mouth opened, closed. Her whole body sagged, like someone cut her strings. "One time," she whispered. "It was a mistake. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything." I smiled then. I didn't mean to. But it felt like smiling was the only thing that kept me from breaking the whole world in half. "One time?" I asked. She nodded. "Too fast. Too many times." And then her phone, still pressed to her chest, buzzed again. Another message. Another truth trying to escape her lies. The second vibration against her chest might as well have been a gunshot. Madison jumped like she'd been physically struck, clutching the phone tighter. For one brief, pathetic second, she looked at me like a child caught stealing cookies, hopeful that maybe, somehow, she could still fix this, still spin some magic lie thick enough to blind me. I didn't say a word. I just extended my hand, palm up. Not a request. A command. She hesitated, trembling slightly, and then, with a sound that was somewhere between a sob and a growl, she shoved the phone into my hand. I didn't need her permission. I unlocked the screen. No passcode. She trusted me enough for that, at least. The message thread opened immediately, a river of filth pouring out. There were more. Dozens more. Last night was unreal. Your body is addictive. I keep thinking about the way you kissed me in the elevator. When are you free again? I need you. Each word hit like a hammer against my ribs. Different dates. Different times. Different places. I scrolled. And scrolled. There were photos too. Not naked, but close enough. Her, in the office bathroom, biting her lip, the same green sweater pulled just low enough to show a black lace bra underneath. Another of her legs on a hotel bed, just her legs, bare and crossed at the ankles, captioned with a single devil emoji. Every second I stared at that screen, the part of me that still loved her withered like paper tossed into a bonfire. I looked up at Madison. Her face had collapsed into something monstrous. No longer my wife, just a stranger wearing her skin. Defiant. Defensive. Like I had betrayed her by finding out. You said it was one time, I said. My voice was lower now, rougher, like I had to drag it up from somewhere deep and ugly inside me. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. So what? She snapped, tossing her hair over her shoulder like a brat. It's not like we were happy. You act like I ruined some perfect fairy tale. We've been dead for years. I felt something sharp and cold slide into my chest. There it was. Not just the affair. Not just the lies. The contempt. The rot that had been eating away at us behind every fake smile. Every forced laugh. Every silent dinner. I tossed the phone onto the table. It bounced once, then settled next to her half-eaten pasta. You could have left, I said. I didn't recognize my own voice anymore. You could have said something. Anything. Instead, you decided to blow up both our lives because you were bored. Madison leaned back in her chair, folding her arms across her chest, a smirk flickering at the corner of her mouth. Maybe if you had paid a little more attention, she said, slow and cruel, you wouldn't be finding out like this. There it was. The full mask peeled away. No remorse. No regret. Just pure, gleaming malice. The room felt smaller. Tighter. My hands curled into fists on the table without thinking. I forced them open, laying them flat like I was restraining a wild animal inside me. For a long, heavy moment, neither of us moved. Just the sound of the clock ticking above the fridge. Tick. 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 Like a countdown to something inevitable. She finally stood up, pushing her chair back with a screech. I'm not sitting here being judged by someone who didn't even notice when I stopped loving him, she hissed. You can stay here and feel sorry for yourself if you want. I'm done. Madison grabbed her purse from the counter, slinging it over her shoulder like a soldier preparing for war. I didn't stop her. I didn't beg. I watched her walk to the door, watched the woman I had built a life with march away from it without so much as a backward glance. The door slammed so hard behind her that the framed photo of our wedding day trembled on the wall. I sat there alone. The lasagna cold. The wine soaking into the table. And Madison's lover's words still burning on the phone screen in front of me like scars I would never heal from. I didn't move for a long time after Madison left. Not even to clean up the spilled wine or the pasta cooling into a brick on the plate. The phone still sat there, buzzing every few minutes with new messages from her lover, the man she gave herself to while I was busy trying to keep our life from falling apart. I picked up the phone again. Not to call her. I wasn't that pathetic. No, I opened the thread, scrolled back, deeper this time, looking for answers. I wanted to know how long. How deep the knife had been buried. The first messages dated back 6 months. 6 months of lies. Of coming home late with excuses about overtime. Of slipping into bed smelling like a different soap. Of fake smiles at dinner parties. 6 months of living with a stranger wearing my wife's face. One message caught my eye. A plan. A weekend trip. She had told me it was a work conference. I remembered it vividly, her packing hurriedly, refusing my offer to drive her to the airport, claiming she was nervous and needed to be alone. Meanwhile, she and her lover were laughing about it in the messages. Can't wait to have you all to myself for 2 nights. We'll tell him whatever. He's so clueless it's hilarious. I stared at the words until they blurred into smudges. I wasn't even a real person to her anymore. I was furniture. Something to be lied to, manipulated, mocked. The weight of it all collapsed onto me at once. I stood up too fast, the chair tipping and crashing behind me. I didn't care. I needed air. I needed to get out before the walls crushed me. I grabbed my keys, not even sure where I was going, and stumbled out the door into the night. The air was sharp and cold, slicing through my lungs, but it still didn't clear the fog boiling in my head. I drove without thinking. Past our favorite diner where she used to steal fries off my plate. Past the park where we once watched fireworks and promised we'd never let life get boring. Everywhere I looked, memories threw themselves at the windshield like ghosts trying to claw their way back into the present. I ended up in a parking lot outside an empty strip mall, staring at the cracked asphalt under the buzzing fluorescent lights. And that's when my phone rang. It wasn't Madison. It was a number I didn't recognize. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something deep inside me, something instinctive, told me to pick up. I answered. Silence. Then a man's voice, low, nervous. Is this Madison's husband? I gripped the steering wheel with one hand, the phone with the other. Who is this? I asked, my mouth dry. The voice hesitated. Then, in a rush, like ripping off a bandage, I'm sorry, man. I didn't know she was married at first. She lied to me. She said you were her brother. I found out today. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this. The world tilted sideways. Her brother. She told him I was her brother. The betrayal wasn't just in her body. It was in her soul. She had erased me entirely from her life, rewritten me into a harmless figure she could dismiss whenever it suited her. I closed my eyes, pressing the bridge of my nose hard until I saw stars. Why are you calling me? I asked, my voice raw. Another long pause. Then, because you deserve to know the rest, he said. You don't know everything. The hairs on my neck stood up. What do you mean? I whispered. He exhaled shakily. There's more. Stuff she did. Things she said. It's bad, man. Worse than you think. I stared into the dark windshield, into my own reflection. I want to meet, the man said. Face to face. I can show you everything. In the back of my mind, 1,000 alarms were going off. Don't trust him. Don't trust anyone. But a bigger part of me, the broken, desperate part, needed answers more than it needed safety. I agreed. We picked a diner halfway between us. 30 minutes from where I sat. 30 minutes that would change everything again. As I turned the ignition and pulled out into the night, I realized something. I hadn't even reached the bottom yet. There were still more betrayals waiting for me. And I was walking straight into them. The diner looked like something out of a movie, flickering neon sign, cracked windows, 3 cars parked out front, and the heavy smell of burnt coffee leaking out every time someone opened the door. I pulled into a space near the entrance, killed the engine, and just sat there for a minute, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight the leather groaned under my fingers. I scanned the parking lot. A guy was standing under the buzzing streetlight, jacket pulled tight against the cold, shifting nervously from foot to foot. He looked young. Maybe late 20s. Faded jeans, cheap sneakers, a beanie pulled low over messy dark hair. I climbed out of the car, feeling the weight of every step as I crossed the lot toward him. He noticed me and lifted a hand awkwardly, half a wave, half a defensive gesture. You him? He asked. I nodded. For a second, neither of us knew what to say. 2 strangers tied together by one woman's lies, staring at each other like survivors of the same shipwreck. Finally, he cleared his throat, pulled his phone from his pocket, and held it out. She told me you were just her brother, he said. Said you lived together because you couldn't afford your own place. Said you were clingy, controlling. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face blank. She said you were crazy, that you checked her phone, stalked her, tried to control who she talked to. That's why I never questioned it at first. I figured, maybe she was just stuck with you. He flipped through messages as he talked, his thumb moving fast, showing me screenshots. Madison's name, Madison's number, text after text after text. Don't worry about him. He's pathetic. I only stay because I feel sorry for him. You're the only real thing in my life. I wish he would just disappear. Each message hit harder than the last. Not just cheating. Not just betrayal. Character assassination. Destroying me in the eyes of another man just to make her own sins easier to swallow. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. She said you were violent, the man added quietly. That you scared her. That you threatened her. I looked at him then, really looked at him, the skinny, awkward guy who probably thought he was saving some poor damsel in distress. She ever have a bruise on her? I asked. He shook his head wide-eyed. Ever hear her crying? Ever see her afraid of me? Again, a silent no. She lied to you, I said. Just like she lied to me. The man's shoulders sagged like he'd been punched in the gut. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear, man. If I had known, I never would have touched her. I wanted to believe him. And maybe I did. It didn't change the fact that he had touched her. That part was written in stone. He pulled out something else, a small folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. What's this? I asked. Hotel receipts, he said. In case you need proof. I unfolded it. There were dates. Names. Charges. Madison's name signed in sloppy cursive on 3 different forms. Hotels I had never been to. Rooms I had never slept in. You kept these? I asked, suspicion rising. He rubbed the back of his neck, ashamed. I didn't mean to. I think I just felt weird about everything. Like deep down I knew something wasn't right. I folded the papers, tucked them into my jacket without a word. We stood there in silence, 2 men who had both been puppets in the same sick game. Finally, he said, she's not who you think she is. I almost laughed. Not who I thought she was. There wasn't even a she left. Just a mask stretched thin over something hollow and mean. She's all yours, I said, stepping back toward my car. Good luck. He flinched like I'd hit him. I'm done with her, he said quickly. I blocked her. Changed my number. I wanted you to know. I didn't answer. I didn't owe him anything. I got in the car, started the engine, and pulled away without looking back. As the diner's neon lights faded into the rearview mirror, a cold, merciless clarity settled over me. Madison hadn't just betrayed me. She had tried to erase me. And now I was free to erase her. I didn't know how yet, but the seeds of something colder, something sharper, were already taking root inside me. She thought she had won. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. I didn't drive home. Home wasn't a place anymore. Just a crime scene she left her fingerprints all over. Instead, I parked in a dim lot behind an abandoned gas station and sat there. The engine ticking as it cooled, my fingers drumming slow, murderous rhythms against the steering wheel. Every word she said at dinner played back in my head. Every lie, every casual shrug of betrayal. I opened my phone and scrolled to our shared cloud account. She probably thought I was too stupid, too trusting to check it. She forgot who she married. I sifted through the synced data. Texts, photos, locations. Everywhere she'd been. Everyone she'd met. Maps lit up like constellations marking every betrayal. There was something almost surgical about it now. No rage. No sadness. Just the mechanical need to know. To see it all before I burned it down. One location pin jumped out at me, one that wasn't a hotel, wasn't her office, wasn't any place she had ever mentioned before. A little apartment complex downtown. The timestamp? Last night. Not just messages. Not just words. She had been there. In someone else's bed. I zoomed in, copied the address, stared at it. I could go there. Right now. Kick the door down. Drag her into the light in front of whoever she thought was better than me. But no. That would be easy. Messy. I wanted precision. I wanted her to understand what it felt like to have the ground vanish under your feet. I made a plan sitting there in the dark, and by the time I drove away, I wasn't the same man who had sat down for lasagna that evening. First stop, our house? My house. When I stepped through the door, everything inside smelled like her. Cheap perfume. Expensive lies. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, gathering everything I needed. Documents, deeds, bank statements, evidence, pieces of the life we built. The life she set fire to while smiling across candlelit dinners. I packed it all into a small black duffel bag. Not clothes, not keepsakes, just ammunition. When I opened our shared laptop, I found something even better. Her personal email still logged in. Stupid. So stupid. She had gotten too arrogant, too comfortable. In her inbox were contracts she had signed without telling me. Leasing a second apartment under her name only, draining savings from accounts I didn't even know she had opened. A full second life. And she had left it wide open like an invitation. I took pictures of everything. Filed them away. By the time I finished, the house barely felt real anymore. Just a hollow shell with our memories rotting in the corners. It was almost 3 in the morning when I finally sat down on the living room floor, the duffel bag at my side, and dialed a number I hadn't touched in years. A friend. Not a good man, but a useful one. He picked up after 2 rings, his voice low, half asleep but already alert. "Yeah? It's me," I said. A pause. Then a grunt. "What do you need?" I hesitated for half a second. Just long enough to remember Madison's fake tears, her fake smile, the fake marriage she wore like a costume. "I need to disappear," I said. "And I need her to feel it." A low chuckle crackled through the line. "You came to the right person." I hung up, tossed the phone onto the couch, and stared out the window at the sleeping world beyond. Tomorrow, Madison would wake up thinking she had escaped. That she had won. She didn't know the rules had changed. She didn't even know the game had just begun. Morning crept in like a thief. Gray light seeped through the windows, pale and sickly, casting long shadows across the house that no longer felt like mine. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Madison had laughed and lied with a fork in her hand just hours ago, drinking black coffee that tasted like dirt and adrenaline. The plan was simple, precise, cruel in a way she would never see coming. First, I called our landlord. Madison didn't know I had spoken to him a few weeks ago when she started working late, more often. Didn't know I had already requested all paperwork and lease updates be sent directly to my email. She didn't know I was listed as the primary tenant, which meant she was the one who would be evicted when rent mysteriously went unpaid. I drafted the email slowly, savoring it. Effective immediately, vacate notice issued due to unpaid balance. Next, I hit the banks. Madison had opened new accounts, yes, but she had been lazy. She had forgotten to sever some of the old ones still technically in both our names. I emptied them, every dollar, transferred legally, quietly, without warning. The final total wasn't much, just a few thousand, but it would be enough to hurt. Not enough to destroy her. No, that part would come later. I packed the duffel bag into my car, double-checked the folders, then set the house alarm for the last time. At 9:13 a.m., I stood on the porch and locked the front door behind me. I didn't look back. I drove into the city, heart hammering a slow, steady beat against my ribs, parked near the courthouse, and filed the papers I had been carrying all night. Separation, asset division, freezing joint accounts. It was brutal, efficient, no yelling. No drama. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of a big explosive fight where she could cry crocodile tears and pretend she was the victim. No, I was cutting her out with the coldness she deserved. I texted her once. Only once. By the time you read this, everything will already be in motion. Good luck explaining to your new boyfriend why you're broke, homeless, and alone. I blocked her number right after sending it. I blocked her email. Her socials, everything. Madison didn't exist to me anymore. But I wasn't done. I sent copies of everything, the hotel receipts, the messages, the pictures, to her employer. HR departments love knowing when their employees are using business trips for personal affairs, especially when those trips are paid for by the company card. One final message, sent from a clean, untraceable burner email. You might want to look into Madison's recent conferences. Wouldn't want any misuse of company funds, would we? And just like that, the first domino fell. By noon, Madison's carefully crafted second life would start crumbling. One tiny fracture at a time. And me? I'd already be gone. I drove out of the city, further than I had ever planned to go, until the skyline vanished behind me like smoke. Somewhere along a quiet stretch of highway, I pulled over, rolled down the windows, and breathed. For the first time in months, the air didn't taste stale. It tasted like freedom. Not victory, not revenge. Just clean, brutal freedom. Madison would wake up to a life she no longer recognized, the same way she had forced me to wake up last night at dinner. The difference was she chose this. She built this. Brick by broken brick. I was just helping her tear it all down. By the time I crossed into the next state, my phone, a fresh burner, clean and empty, buzzed with a single notification. A voicemail. Unknown number. I pulled over at a rest stop, sitting in the car, listening as the wind dragged dead leaves across the asphalt. I played the message. Madison's voice exploded through the speaker, high-pitched, furious, barely coherent. What the hell did you do? You think you can just run away and leave me with nothing? I woke up and my cards don't work, the landlord says we're being evicted, and someone emailed my boss. You've ruined my life. You're insane. You're evil. I'm calling the police. I'm calling a lawyer. You can't do this to me. The message ended with a sound like something being thrown against a wall. I sat there, the taste of her rage sharp and satisfying on my tongue. She still didn't get it. Still thought she could scare me back into submission with threats, with tantrums. Still thought I was the same man who begged her for scraps of honesty over cold dinners and colder nights. I wasn't. Not anymore. Another message came in. Another unknown number. This one shorter, breathless. I didn't mean it. Please, just call me. We can talk. Please. Pathetic. I deleted it without listening again. She wasn't sorry. She was drowning. And drowning people will say anything to drag you back into the water with them. I pulled back onto the highway, leaving her voice behind like an old skin I didn't need anymore. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower, the sky bruised and blood-colored at the edges. At a small motel just off the highway, I paid cash for a room under a name she didn't know. Plain walls. Sagging bed. Thin curtains that barely kept the dark out. Perfect. I sat at the desk and opened my laptop, not the one we shared. A clean one. A weapon, not a memory. I logged into a new email account and sent out the last of the files I had gathered. To her family. To her friends. To anyone who had ever listened to her badmouth me at parties, behind my back, to paint herself as the suffering saint stuck with an unstable husband. Photos. Texts. Receipts. No commentary. No explanation. Just the raw truth dropped into their laps like a dead animal at their doorstep. Let them see. Let them understand. Madison would find herself exposed in every corner of her carefully constructed social world, the one where she was the victim, the martyr, the perfect, misunderstood woman. There would be whispers. There would be cold shoulders at brunches, suspicious glances at work, broken friendships that she wouldn't even see coming until they collapsed around her. I wasn't there to watch it happen. I didn't need to be. She would be trapped in it. Alone. Exactly the way she had left me sitting at that dinner table while she laughed at another man's messages. My final move for the night was simple. I sent her a package. A plain box. Inside I placed her wedding ring. Nothing else. No note. No explanation. Just the symbol of everything she had smashed into dust, dropped at her doorstep like the corpse of a future she murdered with her own hands. When the package was confirmed as delivered, I powered down the laptop, lay back on the bed, and stared up at the cracked ceiling. There were no tears. No relief. Just a slow, spreading emptiness where she used to live inside me. Madison could scream. She could cry. She could fight. It wouldn't change anything. Her kingdom of lies had fallen. And I was already gone. The next morning, the motel room felt colder. Maybe it was the air conditioning rattling in the wall, or maybe it was the coldness that had settled into my bones and decided to stay. I sipped stale coffee from a paper cup, staring at my burner phone vibrating across the desk like a dying insect. 8 missed calls. 14 new voicemails. Dozens of texts from different numbers, some I recognized, some I didn't. Madison was throwing everything at the wall now, hoping something would stick. One voicemail caught my eye. It wasn't her. It was her mother. A woman who had once called me the best thing that ever happened to Madison, now shrieking down the line, her voice tight with rage. How could you humiliate her like this? Everyone's talking. Do you think you're some kind of hero? You're disgusting. You'll regret this. I deleted it without a second thought. Madison had weaponized everyone. Family, friends, coworkers, even strangers. She had spent years weaving a web so intricate that she forgot what it was made of. Lies. And lies rot fast in sunlight. I let the phone buzz itself to death while I packed my bag, moving slower this time. There was no rush. No fear. I had made my moves. Madison was just scrambling now, flailing, drowning in consequences she never thought she'd have to face. The burner buzzed again. A text. This time it was her. No insults. No threats. Just 2 words, please talk. I stared at the screen for a long time, feeling absolutely nothing. No hatred. No sadness. No temptation to respond. She wasn't reaching out because she loved me. She wasn't sorry. She was terrified. Terrified because her lifelines were snapping one by one. Friends backing away. Coworkers whispering. Family looking at her not as a victim but as a liar caught mid-performance. Madison didn't miss me. She missed control. I turned off the phone, dropped it into a trash can outside the motel, and drove out. No music. No GPS. Just the open road swallowing the past behind me. But part of me, the strategic, ruthless part that had gotten me this far, knew she wouldn't stop there. Desperation makes people dangerous. Late that afternoon, parked at a diner 2 towns over, I borrowed a stranger's laptop and checked the email account I had used to send out the evidence. There was a new message. From Madison. No subject line. No greeting. Just a few lines. You destroyed my life. I have nothing left. I hope you're happy. You're a monster. But if you ever loved me even a little, meet me tonight. Same place where we had our first date. 8 p.m. Just one last time. Please. I leaned back in the stiff diner chair, staring at the screen. A final play. A last desperate attempt to claw something back. Nostalgia, guilt, pity, she was throwing every hook she had into the water, hoping I was still the idiot who would bite. I wasn't. But a small, cold voice inside me whispered, go. Not for her. For you. To see the wreckage up close. To watch the empire of lies collapse with your own eyes. To make sure there was nothing left alive to drag you back down. I closed the laptop slowly, the decision already made. Tonight I would go. Not as the man who loved her. Not even as the man she betrayed. I would go as the man she created. And she wouldn't recognize him at all. The parking lot was almost empty when I pulled in. The same cheap restaurant where we had our first date sat squat and sagging against the horizon, neon sign flickering weakly like it was choking on its own light. It felt like another lifetime. I parked across the lot, engine ticking down, heart dead steady. She was already there. Madison stood near the entrance, arms crossed, weight shifting nervously from one foot to the other. She wore a jacket that used to be mine, thrown over a dress too thin for the cold. Her hair was messy, makeup smudged, like she had either been crying or wanted me to think she had. A performance. Like always. She spotted me, her face lighting up with something desperate. Not joy, not love. Something much more hollow. I got out of the car but didn't move closer. We stood like that for a moment. A battlefield stretched between us, littered with every lie, every betrayal, every night she thought she got away with it. Madison broke first. She rushed forward a few steps, stopped herself awkwardly, then stood there, shivering, wringing her hands. I didn't know what else to do, she said, voice breaking like glass underfoot. You left me with nothing. I stayed silent. She bit her lip hard, searching my face, trying to find a crack in the armor she used to know so well. I made mistakes, she said quickly, words tumbling over themselves. I was stupid. Selfish. I got lost. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't think you cared anymore. I let out a short, humorless breath. Her voice faltered at the sound of it. You didn't think I cared? I said, low and even. Is that what you tell yourself now? Her hands twisted into the hem of the jacket. People drift. Relationships die. It's not just my fault. There it was. The same old rot. The refusal to take the weight of her choices. I took a step closer, not because I wanted to, because I wanted her to feel it. You didn't just let us die, I said. You murdered us. You set the fire, you locked the doors, and you watched it burn. Her chin trembled, but she held my gaze. Desperation made her brave. I miss you, she whispered. I miss us. Can't we start over? We can fix it. We can build something better. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Fix it. After digging a grave 6 feet deep and dancing on the dirt, I took another step forward, close enough now that I could see the cracked spiderwebbing across her carefully constructed face. No, I said quietly. You don't miss me. You miss the version of me who didn't know. The one you could lie to and use whenever it was convenient. Madison's face crumpled. Tears now. Real ones maybe. Or maybe just more paint on a rotting wall. I'm sorry, she gasped. I was scared. I thought you'd leave me if you knew how broken I was. I thought if I could just hold on to something, anyone. Anyone. Not me. Not us. Just anyone to fill the void. I stepped back, putting distance between us like a wall. You thought wrong, I said. You lost something you'll never find again. She moved forward, hands reaching out like she could still pull me back with touch alone. But I didn't move. I let her touch nothing. The space between us stretched wider, heavier, until it felt like an entire ocean was swallowing her whole. You made your choice, I said, voice cold enough to freeze the night air between us. And now you get to live with it. Madison opened her mouth. Maybe to plead, maybe to curse me, but I was already turning away. I walked back to my car. Slow. Final. She didn't follow. The engine rumbled to life under my hands. A sound that felt more alive than anything she could ever offer again. In the rearview mirror, she stood there, small and shaking, framed by the sputtering neon light of the place where it all began, where it all ended, and I drove away without a second thought. The road stretched ahead of me, endless and black, the lines on the asphalt slicing through the dark like scars that would never heal. I didn't look back. There was nothing left behind me worth seeing. Madison had built a kingdom on quicksand, convinced she was untouchable. Every lie she told was a stone she tied around her own neck. I just cut the rope. And as I drove further into the night, something inside me started to shift, not relief, not triumph, something deeper, older. Acceptance. This wasn't a victory. There was no trophy waiting at the end of this. It was simply survival. People like Madison don't understand consequences until they're standing knee-deep in the ruin they swore would never reach them. Maybe tomorrow she'd wake up in a stranger's bed, staring at a phone that didn't buzz anymore, realizing too late that she burned every bridge, every safety net, every lie she ever told herself to sleep at night. Maybe she'd scream. Maybe she'd cry. Maybe she'd try to find someone else to blame. But none of it mattered. She wasn't my problem anymore. I pulled into a dusty roadside motel around 2 in the morning. Checked in under another fake name. Small room, peeling wallpaper, the hum of broken air conditioning filling the silence. Perfect. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the chipped paint on the wall for a long time. There were still bruises inside me she would never see. Pieces of myself carved out and left bleeding under the weight of her betrayal. But they were mine to heal now. Not hers. Not anyone else's. In the end, Madison didn't destroy me. She freed me. She stripped away every illusion, every cheap dream, every lie I was willing to swallow to keep the fantasy alive. And in the ruins, I found something she could never touch, the truth. The truth that love without respect is just a slow, quiet death. The truth that loyalty means nothing without honesty. The truth that sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's the last, brutal mercy you give yourself. If anyone out there reading this is sitting across the table from someone who makes you doubt yourself, someone who laughs with a mouth full of lies, someone who turns every question into an accusation, leave. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for the final betrayal. Sometimes the absence of love is all the proof you need. I turned off the light, lay back on the bed, and closed my eyes. Not to sleep, not yet, just to feel the heavy, terrifying, beautiful silence of a life I was finally free to rebuild. Without her, without the lies, without regret, just me, broken, but breathing. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.